I knew from the campaign trail that the philosophy that was underpinning Elon Musk's main pitch as to why he was backing Donald Trump was not something that was sustainable. Now, that's not to say that every reason that he backed Trump isn't something that he can still back up. I'm pretty sure that he doesn't like the woke, considering his relationship with his one of his trans kids. I'm pretty sure his crusade against the trans agenda, the woke agenda, all that stuff, that still is perfectly in line with what Elon believes. So I'm not trying to say that Elon has woken up one day and he found out that Donald Trump wasn't caught up on his feminist literature or something. But that's to say that one of the biggest reasons he said he was supporting Trump to quote unquote save America, that if the Democrats win, they're going to destroy America because our deficit spending is too out of control. And as a percentage of our budget, deficit spending, that means servicing our deficit, servicing our 10 to 30-year bonds, continues to go up. And so Elon saw it as part of his governing, philosophy as to why he was going out there and spending $275 million, which even for the richest man on the planet is quite a lot of money, not just in direct contributions to Donald Trump's PAC, Donald Trump's PACs, or his own PAC, the America PAC, which he, used to try to send canvassers all across the country to back up Donald Trump. He said it was because our deficit spending was so out of control. We had to get it in line, or we're not going to have a country anymore, so we have to reel it in. Problem is, when the big, beautiful bill came around, as Trump has referred to it, it did not get rid of our deficit. It did not address our debt. It would actually, according to the CBO report, increase our debt by $2 trillion and increase our deficit as well. So we're talking about adding trillions of dollars more to the debt, which is ultimately going to mean servicing more for the deficit. If you add more to the debt, that means the deficit is going to increase. Now, mind you, Donald Trump's solution to this has not been to completely get rid of the deficit or reform the bill. It has been to make some cuts here to social services, for example, the 10.9 million people that could lose their Medicaid, as well as continue with his tax cuts. So if he just made social services cuts and didn't go through with the tax cuts, then maybe he could actually reduce the deficit. That's not how I would go about it. I don't think Medicaid is exactly the top priority for where we need to be making cuts. And I also do not think that cutting taxes right now is necessary. And that's not even saying nobody should have cut taxes, but the idea of cutting taxes across the board when we have this sort of an issue is necessarily the solution. I think that it would make sense to tax those who have excess wealth as income inequality continues to increase in order to try to service our nation's deficit. I mean, these people were made rich off the backs of this country, off the back of American laborers, and they have an invested interest to see this country be sustainable and for us not to have a spiraling debt crisis, which will create instability, which is not just bad for all of us, but is also bad for business. And back in the 1930s, most Republicans agreed with me. Back in the 1930s, if you polled Republicans and they were like at 22 or 23% said, cut taxes even if it increased the deficit. Only 22% believed that. The rest of them said, no, that's fiscally irresponsible. That's a bad idea. If you cut taxes and it's going to increase the deficit, then we're passing debt to our children. Now, if you poll them, 72% says cut taxes anyway. So cut taxes has overtaken fiscal responsibility, right? This philosophy of cut taxes, it'll create enough growth that it'll overcome the deficit, it'll overcome the debt. That was Trump's first term pitch. It didn't work. That's what some people tell themselves to, make themselves feel better about what they're doing for the deficit. But even when you tell them that it will increase the deficit, it will hurt the deficit, they still want to cut taxes. Now, that doesn't mean that there's nobody that still believes in fiscal conservatism. Obviously, the 28% or 30% of the party that still believes in it, they exist, and Elon Musk is part of that percentage. And while we've seen some poking and prodding and some suggestion and some whisperings that Elon is very clearly not happy with how this bill treats the deficit, especially after he made so much of a hubbub and public performance through Doge, unconstitutionally in many instances, but with the pursued goal of cutting the deficit, cutting the debt, so he can preserve the economic health of the nation. Well, that didn't end up working out. A lot of the deficit cuts and reductions that he announced ended up not panning out, where he's talking about hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars saved, amounting to roughly about 50 to 60 billion dollars saved. And much of that 50 to 60 billion, we're talking about NIH cuts to staffing. We're talking about USAID getting gutted and how that's going to affect a bunch of people getting AIDS medicines across the world, many who have already died when at the time they said that nobody was going to get hurt, when we were literally abandoning staff in Africa. So it's not that I don't agree with Elon that there's a problem. It's that I don't think that pursuing a solution to that problem unconstitutionally is good for the country. And I also don't think that Elon necessarily is going to do it with respect to the checks and balances and pursuing just the nation's interest. I don't think gutting the Consumer Financial Protection Bureau, which returned $20 billion to over 160 million Americans, is something that looks out for the fiscal health of the nation. The anti-scam police look out for the fiscal health of the nation. So either way, though, Elon thinks that the deficit's a problem. He looked at Donald Trump, the person who makes up 25% of our national debt from his first term, and said he's the guy to bet on him. Didn't think it was a good idea, but he did. And now let's come back. We saw a few signs of it, but I think, Elon was a little hesitant to lash out at Trump after investing $275 million, after, toiling to create this relationship with him and the people in the administration. And so when he was directly asked by CBS News not too long ago, and I believe it was Good Morning America, I forget exactly, I don't think it was Good Morning America, but it's Sunday morning something. I forget I don't really watch CBS that often, but they were doing an interview with Elon at one of his factories, and they asked him about his policy on foreign students. Like, hey, Trump wants to ban these foreign students. Isn't that you? Weren't you a foreign student? What do you have to say to that? And then Elon just refused to answer the question. So I think this was an indication that Elon was kind of holding back, and rumors were that even though Elon was saying things about the big, beautiful bill, in Washington, specifically in Trump and his inner circle, they kept their mouths shut because they didn't want the narrative to be, oh my gosh, look, right-wing civil war, Trump, Elon civil war, they're clashing, they're fighting, and possibly it could have a negative, even more negative effect on the big, beautiful bill than just Elon expressing his displeasure. Let me show you this clip to show you where Elon was literally just 5 days ago.
Didn't get off to a smooth start.
I noticed that all of your businesses involve a lot of components, a lot of parts. Do the tariffs and the trade wars affect any of this?
Tariffs always affect things a little bit.
Wondering what your thought is on the ban on foreign students, the proposal. I mean, you were one of those kids, right?
Yeah, I think we want to stick to, the subject of the day, which is like spaceships, as opposed to, presidential policy.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was told anything's good, but...
No.
Now that doesn't look good. That doesn't look good for Elon, Oh, I'm the social media guy. I'm the free speech guy. I like to challenge power with freedom of information or whatever, Ask me any question. So let me ask you this question that has to do with who you were and what Trump's doing now. Oh, never mind. Again, Elon Musk put $275 million behind Donald Trump. He should be able to answer basic questions about presidential policy since he was a big factor in him getting elected. Now, I'm not saying that without Elon, they couldn't have gotten him elected anyway. But I am saying that $275 million is a lot of money, and you can do a lot with that type of money. But this ceasefire, this holding of the guns, this holding of the candidate did not last forever. And again, it always starts with like a little bit of a rumble, like a little bit of mild critique. But with Elon, once the momentum of this critique started to come out, it just built and built and built and built and built. And he did it simply and softly at first by simply referencing his earlier statements saying that we need to fight against the deficit, and the earlier statements of people like Mike Johnson and Senate Majority Leader Thune, their statements against the deficit. So he started tiptoeing into the subject. As you can see here, here is him posting a video from himself back in 2021 where he's commenting on the federal budget saying you can't just spend 3 trillion more than you earn every year and don't expect something bad to happen. Something's got to give. And Elon Musk responded with this saying, I have been very consistent, just stating the facts, establishing that this is a long-standing policy of himself that he's held for a while and he's not going to back off of. And then Elon keeps putting out messages like this, which are kind of hard to ignore because they might actually come with some action from the people who, you know, respond to him or follow him. Call your senator, call your congressman. Bankrupting America is not okay. Kill the bill. This is saying that Donald Trump's bill is bankrupting the United States. Bankrupting the United States, it's selling out our future, and you cannot endlessly do this. And he just kept doubling down on it. He didn't say it once just to make his point known. Here's him reposting another account, not Jerome Powell, which is ran, in my opinion, by a Neanderthal, but you know, he's still somebody who cares about the deficit. Money Doge has saved from the government, Trump's big, beautiful bill, indicating that, again, Trump is smashing his legacy. He's smashing his legacy of fiscal conservatism and trying to save our national debt crisis. Then Elon started reposting not only Thune and Mike Johnson, which I believe we have around here somewhere. One second. I think here it is. At some point, Congress has to stop this endless cycle of out-of-control deficit spending. This is from Mike Johnson in 2018. And this is during first-term Trump. This is not ancient history. This is very recent. Then he reposted an old CNN opinion piece from Senate Majority Leader Thune from 2011 saying balanced budget or bust, saying we either have a balanced budget or we don't, go forward with this because we have to XYZ, we have to deal with this because if we don't, we have a national crisis. And then he reposted some old footage, an over 10-minute speech from 2020. This is when, Biden was president. Our nation is deeply, deeply in debt right now. Next year, our country will owe more than we produce for the first time since the end of World War II. That's a very bad place to be. Then Elon Musk responds, where is John Thune in 2020? And going after these guys is one thing, but what about Donald Trump using his old words to bite him? And let me tell you, there's a lot of material to work with. It's not hard to find stuff like this. Message from Donald Trump back in January 23rd of 2013. I cannot believe the Republicans are extending the debt ceiling again. I am a Republican, and I am embarrassed. Wise words, Elon says. Mind you, one of the first things that Donald Trump did after winning the election is trying to get a raising of the debt ceiling before he got in there so he didn't have to have a debt ceiling raise be his administration issue. But now, once again, Donald Trump in his big, beautiful bill is asking for a raising of the debt ceiling. So Elon Musk is saying, hey, these are some wise words from before. Where is this Donald Trump now? And he doesn't stop. No member of Congress should be eligible for re-election if our country's budget is not balanced. Deficits not allowed. No deficits. 2012, July 31st. I couldn't agree more. Again, more and more of using Donald Trump's words against him. And when I say more and more, look at this. Where is this guy today? Look how many posts this is. We could use the balanced budget amendment. Politicians don't have the will to cut spending. I cannot believe the Republicans are extending the debt ceiling. I'm a Republican and I'm embarrassed. We need a balanced budget amendment because Congress has no fiscal discipline. The Republicans should not give Barack Obama the authority to raise the debt another $1.2 trillion. Barack Obama is bankrupting this country. His budget adds another $4.4 trillion to the debt, putting us at over $20 trillion in total debt by 2016. Our debt finances China's military. It's time to get tough. We hold all the cards. Let's make America great again. The House's failure to pass the balanced budget amendment was another unforced error by the GOP. Very disappointing. No member of Congress should be eligible for re-election if our country's budget is not balanced. Deficits not allowed. You get the idea. You get the idea. It's all old posts from Donald Trump condemning this idea of either raising the debt ceiling or continuing to service with more and more deficit spending. And a lot of critiques of the Obama administration before him and the weakness of Republicans in confronting this. Where is this guy today? I do want to say, though, the comment here, man, this guy would win in a landslide. I don't even know if that's true. And I'm just saying this to be blunt, but I don't know how much the American people actually care about the deficit or the debt, because there have been so many politicians warning about the deficit, warning about the debt for so long, and Americans haven't really seen how it affects their daily life due to our status as the international reserve currency and how integral we are for the international system of trade, meaning that everyone has an incentive to not completely destabilize the dollar for what it would mean for their trade, what it would mean for their economies, what it would mean for an international recession or depression. So that's why even Republicans right now don't really care that much about deficit spending. It's not even like a polled top 10 issue. So the idea that if Donald Trump just came out and all of a sudden was like, I care about deficit spending, oh, like that would fix anything, I think that's very naive. In fact, I think politicians see not taking advantage of deficit spending in the American system as a loss of political capital. Think about it. You're in office. You do all this work to bring deficit spending under control, and oh my gosh, it's the first time ever we have a surplus. You had to make some sacrifices, cuts to infrastructure programs, cuts to other programs, some of which you really cared about. Some of it would be like killing your own baby is a writer's term. You know, you gotta, oh, I gotta get rid of this initiative I made or that initiative I made. But once you're all said and done, look at that balanced budget. Then, after you get very little political reward for it, the next person comes in and they immediately use all that fiscal space you've crafted for them to spend that money. Spend it on a border wall, spend it on big infrastructure projects, spend it on a pet project, spend it on weapons, whatever it could be. Because to them, if they don't spend that money, when you get back into office, you're going to spend that money. It's something you could use to please the political constituencies that got you into power, therefore helping keep you in power. And so you can choose your own political priorities over the fiscal health of the state. And so the idea that this would help Trump win in a landslide, I kind of find it, well, naive. Either way, though, Elon's laying into it. And then I feel like, you know, as Trump didn't respond, or maybe as, you know, the responses were like, you know, I think Elon needs to pipe it down. I don't think he understands the bill. And there were some comments about the only reason he doesn't like it is the EV credits. Elon then started to pick up. He started to pick up the pace when it comes to aggression on this. Listen to this. This is just from today. This is just from like 5 or 6 hours ago. 6 hours ago. Without me, Trump would have lost the election. Dems would control the House, and the Republicans would be 51-49 in the Senate. Such ingratitude. He gave them $275 million. He used his public persona to back the Republicans. He went out there on the campaign trail and campaigned for them. And now they're not listening to him, the richest man in the world who backed them with a lot of capital, when he says that this big, beautiful bill can either be big or beautiful, not both. Such ingratitude. Those words really laid into me as if, how dare they not be gracious for how I have helped them? Mind you, like Elon didn't need to go do that. Elon didn't need to put all his money down on the floor for these people. Elon didn't need to spend such amount of capital trying to get Donald Trump elected. He chose to. He chose to think that Donald Trump was going to be a deficit hawk, even though he had no record of being a deficit hawk outside of language on the campaign trail. But that's not how he governed. He chose to get behind Donald Trump, even when it came with some personal, like, capital problems, as in, you know, Tesla isn't selling the way it used to. But hey, when you've got access to the most powerful person on the planet, that can come with some benefits for your business. Either way, he's saying that these people would not even be close to the power that they have now if it wasn't for him Elon is the one who won them the election. Show some gratitude, Trump. Doesn't say Trump, but who is it directed towards? Who's the head of the snake here? And then what does he do after this post? Literally 2 minutes, 2 to 3 minutes after making that post, he posts this. No member of Congress should be eligible for re-election if our country's budget is not balanced. Deficit's not allowed. Once again, back to reposting Donald Trump's messages. This is actually one he posted twice. So apparently he really liked this old Donald Trump post enough that it got 2 posts, one with a message and another with a 100 emoji. And about 5 minutes after that, Elon Musk unfollows Charlie Kirk of Turning Point USA fame and of, you might know him by his beautiful smile. Either way, he unfollows the guy. Okay. Now it's not just isolated to Trump or Republican leadership. Now we're seeing Elon starting to, disconnect and decouple. I don't want to say burn a bridge because an unfollow is an unfollow, but decouple from different conservative commentators who, base their careers on being Trump loyalists and foot soldiers, which Charlie Kirk is certainly that. That's how you could see somebody go from neocon foreign policy beliefs to bashing Ukraine like that, dependent upon what Trump's mood is. Then after that, well, actually, no, I think it was 15 minutes before, Elon started reposting videos of Donald Trump on the front lawn of the White House trying to huck Teslas, trying to get people to buy Elon Musk's cars, which I always thought was a failing effort. I mean, I'm sorry, but electric cars are not particularly popular in Trump world, okay? You've got to get over the big hurdle, and I'm just going to be blunt here, of convincing MAGA supporters that electric cars are not just for gay vegans, okay? If you can do that, if you can achieve that, if you can convince them it's not just for gay vegans, then mazel tov, you're going to sell a lot of electric cars. But so far, you've been unsuccessful. They want their big trucks. They want their big trucks. They want their gas guzzlers. They want their Jeeps for off-roading, out in the sand dunes of wherever, That's what they want. They don't want your electric cars. And the liberals that typically would be maybe more favorable towards buying electric cars are going to other providers because of driving around in a Tesla is kind of like wearing a big MAGA hat. Whether that's going to be the case moving forward is another story, but that's been the case up until this point. Also, can we just say how wild it is that the President of the United States can basically open up like the Tesla equivalent of a lemonade stand on the front yard of the White House and just start hucking these products? Go buy them. They're such great cars. How much for this one? He's literally naming the price tag so people can go buy them. I mean, it's just such... Access to the president is very useful. Anyway, Elon then, after that, posted this poll. Is it time to create a new political party in America that actually represents the 80% in the middle? Now, I voted yes, okay? Did you guys go to the ballot box to vote in this poll? I did. I voted yes, okay? Because, it's fun. Either way, 81.2% yes, 18.8% no. 2.8 million votes viewed by 25.2 million people on Twitter, even though Twitter views, you can just scroll past something very quickly. But Elon is indicating interest in a third party. Mind you, one of the big fears Republicans had going into 2024 was the idea that, man, Trump's so damaged as a candidate. Trump isn't a fantastic candidate because of his controversies and, just casually trying to overthrow the government, and, So their fear and a lot of their engaging with Trump, why I think part of the reason they didn't completely, burn Trump in the interim was they were scared that due to Trump's cult of personality around him, if he decided to make a third party with like a lion as the logo or something, they call it the lion, it'd be like the elephant, the donkey, and the lion or something or whatever, then Trump could take votes away from the Republican and then help the Democrats win in 2024. That was the fear. Now, ultimately, that fear subsided when Donald Trump went out there, didn't even participate in the debates, and curb stomped the primary because the Republican base was still behind Trump. They're still behind the man. So that fear went away. But that same fear for the Republican Party still exists. The idea that a third party could take votes away from them. I mean, they've complained about the Libertarian Party in this context for quite a while. I guess for the Democrats, you could make the equivalent with the Greens or whatever. But if the richest man in the world started a third political party in the United States under this message, using his very big social media platform to support it, and just right off the bat, I mean, if he can drop $275 million on Trump, what stops him from dropping 100, 200, or 300? Did you guys hear that? The car alarms are going off. It's a little close. Oh boy. I don't know if you guys heard that. Oh no, there's more. They're really close. Anyway, but the same threat still exists. If he put 300 million, 400 million, 500 million, and I'm talking about these larger numbers because he could end up doing that out of spite. Well, then that's something that could really mess with the Republican Party. I mean, and they don't need to take a lot of votes away. I mean, if they take 5%, 4%, I mean, that's something that could decide an election. I mean, Donald Trump did not win the last election with the majority of the vote. He won the election with a plurality of a vote, with an ended up like vote divide of about 1 to 1.5%. So if Elon gets in there and just takes 2% of the vote away with a third party with 300 million in its coffers, that can do a lot of damage. And Elon, for all of my concerns about him going into topic after topic after topic with very little expertise, he's not like a Neanderthal. He understands what the implications of Elon, of himself starting a third party would be in reference to an election in 2028. He understands what those implications would be. And so he's saying this, in my mind, almost like an active threat. Now, whether or not this is something that's being floated to, just scare them, whether or not this is something that he's actually considering, I would probably assume the former, because there's probably more cost-effective ways of using your money than to try to start a third political party from scratch. Not to mention, I mean, if you're going to be despised by both the Democrats and the Republicans, where does that put you in the spectrum? I guess for him, it's the 80% in the middle between the 10% in the Republicans and 10% of Democrats. But is that how it's going to end up panning out? I think it's more of an open political saboteur threat, Such ingratitude. Such ingratitude. So Donald Trump didn't take all of this lying down, He's a grown man. While he wanted to hold back from preventing the scandal being in the CNN, MSNBC, CBS, NBC, Fox, and all these three-letter news organizations, or an MSNBC, I guess it's, we're talking about 5 letters, but all of these big news cable companies, he doesn't want the headline on the scrolling text on the bottom of the screen to be Elon Trump feud. Elon turns on Trump. Trump's biggest fan turns on him. Richest man in the world says Trump's gonna XYZ the economy, XYZ. He doesn't want that. But if Elon's gonna be standing on Twitter on like an artillery gun, just constantly lobbing shells at his big beautiful bill that he wants to preserve for making the tax cuts, much of the Trump tax cuts permanent. He wants to do the Medicaid cuts. He wants to pursue these policies. He's got to do something in Trump's mind, right? I mean, he could just be quiet. He could continue to be quiet and not respond. But would that be smart because you wouldn't want to be like poking Elon to make it worse? Or would that be dumb because it would end up making him look weak? Well, either way, Trump, if that was logic that went into his decision, or he just moved irregardless of that decision making because eventually he heard it too many times, Trump came out and responded to Elon's opposition to his big beautiful bill by saying that the only reason Elon's really angry is because A, he's not going to be getting EV credits anymore, and B, he recommended a NASA guy that Trump didn't like, because he was like a Democrat. Listen to him.
All of the things that we're doing, nobody's ever seen anything like it. And, Elon's upset because we took the EV mandate, and, which was a lot of money for electric vehicles. And, you know, they're having a hard time, the electric vehicles, and they want us to pay billions of dollars in subsidy. And, you know, Elon knew this from the beginning. He knew it for a long time ago. That's been in there. That's been, I would say, JD, that hasn't changed. That's been right from the beginning. Mr. Secretary, that hasn't changed at all, right from the beginning. But I know that disturbed him. He wanted, and rightfully, you know, he recommended somebody from, that he, I guess, knew very well. I'm sure he respected him, but to run NASA. And I didn't think it was appropriate. And he happened to be a Democrat, like totally Democrat. And I say, you know, look, we won. We get certain privileges, and one of the privileges, we don't have to appoint a Democrat. NASA is very important. We have great people. General Kane is going to be picking somebody with our, we'll be checking him out and seeing, but he wanted that person, a certain person, and we said no. And, you know, I can understand why he's upset. Remember,
what does that even mean? A total Democrat in NASA. Oh my God, he's gonna woke Saturn. He's gonna transition the moon. Like what? How does that even? Irregardless of that, if you look here, there is a added context to the video. I don't know if this was Elon has his warriors out there doing this, if Elon did it himself, if this was just done by just random readers. But it says Elon Musk has always been in favor of ending the EV tax credit, and it cites Forbes, Business Insider, Investopedia, etc. But then Elon also responds by quote tweeting Donald Trump when he was talking about Jared Isaacman, you know, the person to administer NASA, the person that I believe Elon suggested, saying this is what he said about Jared. And it shows that Donald Trump saying he's delighted to nominate him. He's great. He's fantastic. You know, he's somebody who could really hold on to NASA's mission of discovery and inspiration, you know. But that still was not enough for Donald Trump. He continues to sit down and, you know, make sure his punches have weight. I'm very disappointed with Elon.
but if they picked him, I would have won Pennsylvania. I won it by a lot. But I'm very disappointed because Elon knew the inner workings of this bill better than almost anybody sitting here, better than you people. He knew everything about it. He had no problem with it. All of a sudden he had a problem, and he only developed the problem when he found out that we're going to have to cut the EV mandate, because that's billions and billions of dollars, and it really is unfair. We want to have cars of all types. Electric, we want to have electric, but we want to have a gasoline, combustion. We want to have different. We want to have hybrids. We want to have all. We want to be able to sell everything. And when that was cut, and Congress wanted to cut it, it became a little bit different. And I can understand that. But he knew every aspect of this bill. He knew it better than almost anybody. And he never had a problem until right after he left. And if you saw the statements he made about me, which I'm sure you can get very easily, it's very fresh on tape. He said the most beautiful things about me. And he hasn't said bad about me personally, but I'm sure that'll be next. But I'm very disappointed in Elon. I've helped Elon a lot.
Mr. President.
So Elon responds to this saying, false. This bill was never shown to me, even once, and was passed in the dead of night so fast that almost no one in Congress could even read it. So not only does he say that Trump is lying, but he doesn't say lying. He just says false, right? Welcome to the Trump world, Elon. But he also says that it was basically rushed through so nobody could review the bill, nobody could review any wasteful spending, nobody could review the problems with the deficit or the cuts to Medicaid or cuts to whatever, even though I doubt the cuts to Medicaid is what Elon is all that worried about. But let me tell you something, this is already pretty bad. To me, this is already the Trump-Elon feud as bad as I could imagine it getting, where Elon is being publicly bashed by Trump as somebody who's just greedily going after EV mandates. And Elon Musk is saying, you know, he's lying. He passed this in the dead of night. It's massive deficit spending, but it only gets worse. Donald Trump then responds to everything that's going on by saying the easiest way to save money in our budget, billions and billions of dollars, is to terminate Elon's government subsidies and contracts. I was always surprised that Biden didn't do it. Mind you, the subsidies and contracts that Elon has cover things from SpaceX to like it covers quite a bit. I mean, we're talking about billions upon billions of dollars, as he said. And obviously, this would be bad for Trump. Sorry, there's a drone right above my apartment. And there it is. It's closer. And it's closer. That's a little too close. Anyway, where were we? Anyway, but he has billions upon billions of dollars. Yeah. But I mean, what we're going to end up talking about is something like 15 billions of dollars. It's not going to get rid of the deficit thing. It is just Trump punishing Elon essentially for disloyalty, punishing Elon for the fact that he is not stepping lock behind everybody else, marching forward, even though this massively increased the deficit in the one area of government, Doge, government efficiency, getting rid of waste, trying to cut the deficit spending, the one area Elon actually got to put his hands on. Elon then responds to the threat to cut all of these SpaceX contracts, saying, in light of the president's statement about cancellation of my government contracts, SpaceX will begin decommissioning its Dragon spacecraft immediately, which was a project that he was working with the government on the spacecraft. It's this escalation that just kept going and going and going. It first started with, hey, you guys used to be against deficit spending, to, we got to kill the bill, to, well, he's just angry about cutting of this EV mandate, with Elon saying, no, he's a liar. And now Trump's saying, I'll cut your government subsidies, to Elon responding, fine, we'll decommission our spacecraft that we're working with the government for. It just keeps escalating and escalating and escalating. And you've got two people with massive egos finally colliding, which was the fear of many people in Trump's inner circle, that Elon didn't have the president's best interests at heart, so to speak. And now we're starting to see the effects of that. By the way, I do want to give a small, piece of attention to, another explosion, Ashley St. Clair, who tweeted out, hey, @real Donald Trump, let me know if you need any breakup advice. In reference to the fact, that's machine gun fire. Oh, that's right there. I can see it. Anyway, Ashley St. Clair got banged by Elon, right? And she got knocked up by him. I'm sorry to put it crudely, but that's what happened. And then after getting knocked up by Elon, she then had, according to her, had to go to Twitter in order to get his attention, to acknowledge the fact that it was her kid, that, it was her kid and Elon's. It was her kid and Elon's kid. And because it's her kid and Elon's kid, she wants support from the richest man on the planet. You're the richest man on the planet. Take care of your kids. You should probably stop knocking people up. I think, over a dozen kids is probably enough. I think you're enough. You don't, be fruitful and multiply was God's, advice and everything. But I mean, you've multiplied enough, okay? You've multiplied enough. So she's citing out, hey, if you need breakup advice, I'm here. You can get me. You can listen to me. I can tell you what it's like to be burned by Elon. But it just keeps going. Here's another message from Donald Trump as it continued to escalate. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. Now, if you want to know what this is in reference to, there was a lot of talk on, in MAGA circles that Elon was kind of like overstaying his welcome, that he stayed at Mar-a-Lago a lot longer than people expected, that he's at the White House all the time. And, Democrats in the opposition, they really lambasted the administration saying, hey, who's president? This is the co-presidency. People kept referring to it as. And so I think this is what it could be in reference to, all those reports that Elon was, quote unquote, overstaying his welcome. Elon was wearing thin. I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate that forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted, that he knew for months I was going to do. And he just went crazy. Again, it's all about the EV mandate. He keeps turning in the idea that this is the EV mandate. And then Elon responds, not that this is false. Now he moves forward to say, such an obvious lie. So sad. He's talking like Trump too. So sad. So sad. Fake news president. Fake news Trump. So sad. So sad. And then Elon throws this out earlier today, and I only noticed it as I was gathering all of this. I found this as a reply. Oh, and some food for thought. I mean, imagine hearing this as Trump. You're immediately going to be poisoned to Elon forever if anybody shows you something like this. Oh, and some food for thought as they ponder this question. Trump has 3.5 years left as president, but I will be around for 40 plus years. Elon's saying that Trump's here for a little bit longer. I'm going to be here for a lot longer, and I'm the richest man on the planet. I got a big wallet. I can spend. This is the same guy that just a few days ago was saying that we will remove those from office in November of next year in the 2026 midterms, those who have betrayed the American people, in reference to the big, beautiful bill, indicating that, you know, if Elon gets, if these legislators get out there and push it through, he might take money, take resources, and try to primary them out of office and replace them with people who he believes are going to be more fiscally conservative or, you know, fight for his interests, so to speak. And so Elon's essentially saying, my big wallet's going to be around for 40 years. Trump's in office for 3.5. I'm the richest man on the planet. What does that count for? At least that's how I read it. Then Elon attacks his one of his staple flagship policies. That was a staple flagship policy on the campaign trail and has been a staple flagship policy of his foreign policy trade agenda. The Trump tariffs. One of Elon's fan accounts, Shibi Toshi Namamoto or whatever, can I finally say that the Trump tariffs are super stupid? And Elon quote tweets it saying, the Trump tariffs will cause a recession in the second half of this year. Now, this is when I start to think that this is self-harm. This is self-harm. I mean, you have to think about it from this perspective for a second. If you're Elon and you throw this out there, okay, you don't like Trump's tariffs, you think they're going to cause a recession, why are you just saying this now? I mean, if this is something, again, he put $275 million behind Trump. Thank you for the $2, Jim. He put $275 million behind Trump. That's a lot of resources for what he said was, you know, the fiscal survival of the nation state. And now that you're publicly feuding with him after the big, beautiful bill doesn't go the way you wanted, now you say immoral, that the tariffs are bad. Now you say not only that the tariffs are bad, thank you for the support for the primer, R-E-W, Rian. I don't know how to say your name, but thank you. Now that you say that the tariffs are, the subs and the explosions and the commentary, you know, it's kind of feel like a pinball right now. Why is it now you're talking up about it? I mean, you're saying it's going to cause a recession. If it's going to cause a recession, then you should have immediately said something when they were implemented, because you tried to get this man elected based off the fiscal health of the nation, you were worried about deficit spending, you were worried about the debt, you were worried about you know, the cost for people, inflation, you were worried about all these things. And now that you're feuding with him as somebody who's supposed to be principally dedicated to the country, despite your violations of the U.S. Constitution, now you're commenting on the fact that Trump's tariffs could cause a recession? Now you're commenting on the fact that it's obviously a tax on American consumers? Now you're commenting on the fact that you think that this is going to cause a recession? Now that you're feuding with them at 11:26 p.m. in the middle of the night, long after they've been implemented, now you're out there in the streets saying that they were dumb, that they were stupid, super stupid, and that they're going to cause a recession. This, again, the 40-year thing about Trump is already something that I don't see how you go back from. But this makes no sense if you care about the country to just keep quiet about until you have a feud with the president. And so I understand that this makes Trump look bad, but I also think this makes Elon look bad. I think it's a lose-lose. Like, haha, I'm going to tell everybody that you're going to cause a recession. Would have been nice if you said that earlier, Mr. Richest Man on the planet, who has a lot of sway because you're the richest man on the planet. But that was nothing. in comparison to the bomb that was dropped after. I mean, a recession's already a lot. That's already a big accusation to throw at somebody that was supposed to be running off of an economic message. But to then follow that up with this, time to drop the really big bomb. He knew what he was doing. At real Donald Trump is in the Epstein files. That is the real reason they have not been made public. Have a nice day, Donald J. Trump. Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. And I'm taking that quote from Alex Jones. God help us all. God help us all. Imagine being in someone like Alex Jones's position, where you're out there like hucking propaganda for the Russian state. You're out there, you know, Sandy hooking propaganda all day, all night. You're out there, you know, being Alex Jones, and all of a sudden, the person who is the center of the Epstein file accusation made by the richest man on the planet is the man you wanted to see get elected and the man you interviewed on your show back in 2015. For those of you who forgot that, Trump did make campaign stops on Alex Jones's network InfoWars. God help us all. Now look, this is always a vulnerable part. A vulnerable point for Trump supporters, and it's always going to be a vulnerable point for Trump supporters. Donald Trump being in the Epstein files or not being in the Epstein files, but this floating around when there's pictures like this of Trump out there, when there's videos of him partying with Jeffrey, when Donald Trump has said in the past that Jeffrey's his friend, but he likes his women on the younger side, indicating to me possibly a certain amount of knowledge of the type of man that Jeffrey Epstein was certainly who, you know, that was not certainly a secret to all of his compatriots. I mean, really blows up in the face of anybody who thought or really entertained the idea Donald Trump is fighting against the deep state child traffickers. He's going to be the one to go out there and save the kids from the tunnels or whatever. You know, it told me that Trump is bringing the storm. Turns out Trump was always part of the storm. He was just another rain cloud. And it's been a particularly weak point, especially after I don't know what you call them, but the Epstein file binders were released to Jack Posobiec and all these other propagandists. And it always was such a huge hit at their credibility, because it's not to say that any of these people were ever like taken particularly credible or that they were reporters. But when you look at like Dom Lucario, that weird person that posted CP on Twitter, and they for some reason brought into the White House to be a press correspondent to replace people like the Associated Press, like actual like decent or at least functioning news organizations. You would think for those people, this would be the scandal of the century, right? You think it would be the scandal of the century. You think you'd be like, oh my gosh, it looks like you released these binders of the Epstein files. You said that if you got elected, you released the Epstein files. And now you're not releasing the Epstein files. You're releasing a bunch of files in binders that were already public with tons and tons and tons of redacted information. But what did all those people do? What did Jack Posobiec do? He fell in line. Dom fell in line. All these people who talk about like adrenochrome or child trafficking and like it's like a real issue to them, they all fell in line because it was never a real issue to them. What mattered to them was having access to information that they thought nobody else did. You know, that's the rush of the conspiracy theorist. What mattered to them was being able to demonize their political opponents as people who literally ate children. That's what mattered to them. Actually saving kids, actually getting to the bottom of child trafficking, that was never the interest. If that was the interest, after those binders of the Epstein files were released, all those people should have organized protests across the Capitol asking for justice for the victims of Jeffrey Epstein, but instead they all scurried back to their podcast and went back to complaining about the woke. And so hitting on this particular weak point, that's painful. That's painful. That's painful. And Alex Jones quote tweeted this saying, "The world stands on the brink of total destruction." What does that even mean? Oh God, we're gonna find. Is he angry? Is he angry that we might find something out that, you know, the government might not want us to know? Is he angry that the most powerful people were getting a certain amount of information about them because of the feuding amongst the richest and most powerful? I mean, isn't this like supposed to be the institutional power that these like alt media critics are supposed to be going after? No, no. They're just playing with dolls. They're just like, do this could say, oh yes, I'm the secret agent John Clancy and I'm gonna bust up the adrenochrome ring. But then when you're told to actually do the work of busting up actual trafficking, quiet, quiet. And let me just say, Elon didn't stop. Elon went and was posting MSNBC segments. MSNBC, the Lib Resistance Network. Okay, MSNBC. He was posting clips from them of a 1992 party between Donald and Jeffrey Epstein, partying with all of these young women. When I say young, I don't mean underage, but young women at his penthouse to celebrate the opening of a new business venture.
Trump alternate of a Mar-a-Lago party shows Trump giving Epstein his personal attention. The footage, shot in November of 1992, before Trump opened the resort as a club, shows the future president surrounded by cheerleaders for the Buffalo Bills and Miami Dolphins, capturing Trump's fun-loving bachelor lifestyle for an appearance on Faith Daniels' NBC talk show.
We're going to get great ratings in your show.
Trump is surrounded by women as music blares in the background. After a while, Trump goes to greet 3 new guests. Among them, the financier Jeffrey Epstein. More than a decade before his guilty plea on state prostitution charges. Later in the footage, Trump is seen talking to Epstein and another man as women are dancing in front of them. Trump alternates between dancing and pointing out women to Epstein and the other man and telling Epstein about the cameras. Though exactly what they say is difficult to understand as they discuss the women and their appearances, Trump gestures to one and appears to say to Epstein, "Look at her back there. She's hot." And then Trump says something else into Epstein's ear that makes him double over with laughter. But as the president said,
this is the unmentionable. This is the stuff that you don't say. Because this is the stuff, if proven, if information got out there, if more attention is brought to it and more digging happens, that is the type of political scandal that I don't even think Teflon Don can have slick off his back. I mean, Matt Gaetz sunk after, you know, everything around that was coming to the surface. I mean, Tulsi Gabbard got through. RFK got through. Gates didn't. Gates didn't. I mean, this is the type of thing that is legacy destroying. I mean, not to say that Donald Trump has much of a legacy to brag about in the first place, but legacy destroying. The more attention that's brought to the fact that they didn't release the Epstein files after making these promises, that Donald Trump said that Jeffrey liked his women on the younger side when he was his buddy, that Donald Trump was partying with Jeffrey Epstein, or the fact that on the eve of the election, we got a huge drop of Jeffrey Epstein recordings of him specifically talking about his close relationship with Donald Trump that got next to zero media attention. Look it up. You can listen to Jeffrey Epstein talk about Donald for a long time. It dropped right before the election, got next to zero media coverage, and had no effect on the radar. Had no effect on the political radar whatsoever. But the puzzle pieces are still there. Somebody's just got to put it together and find where the last ones are buried. Look, I don't know what's in the Epstein files. Nobody in the public really knows what's in the Epstein files because Trump refuses to release them after saying he did. And the government, Pam Bondi, his attorney general, says there's no timeline for releasing the rest of the files. So anybody who cares about child trafficking, anybody who cares about knowing if the president of the United States is a diddler, should be requesting that the government release the full unredacted Epstein files. Who are we protecting? Who are we protecting? What is of such importance at this point, after Epstein is long dead and Maxwell is in prison, to continue to redact that information? Do you think Trump would stick his neck out if Obama was in there, or if Hillary was in there? Or is there some names in there that would just be too disconcerting for the man? This right here is probably one of the most destructive things that Elon has brought attention to. And I do wonder if this is the case, again, how Elon Musk doesn't see the problem that this creates for him. Not only because he might be making some high-profile enemies, but also, if you knew that Donald Trump was in the Epstein list, why did you wait till now to say anything? Why wait until you have a feud with the president of the United States to inform the public that the president could have been involved in Jeffrey Epstein's trafficking, or in soliciting his services for minors, or knew what Jeffrey was doing and didn't say anything?
WFC Champ has donated $5. Isn't it funny that Elon is admitting to have knowingly supported a pedo?
Yeah, this is the thing. It's like, there's no win here. It's like, haha, you're going to cause a recession. Okay, why are you just mentioning this now that you don't like the man? Haha, you were in the Epstein files. Okay, would you have not mentioned it if it wasn't for the big, beautiful bill? And that's the big question. Would Elon have informed the public of his belief that the Trump tariffs are going to lead to a recession, which is already big, that affects everybody's bottom dollar, my bottom dollar, your bottom dollar? And also, why would you have waited to inform the public that the president of the United States didn't release the entirety of the Epstein files because his name is in there? And he doesn't want attention brought to that. And he doesn't want to be questioned about that. But you want to know what? He's going to be questioned about it now. AG attorney Pam Bondi is going to be asked, why isn't it being released? Why isn't there a time? They're going to bring it up now. Now, of course, Trump can just treat it like his tax returns if he wants to. He can just say, oh, it's not important. Why do you keep asking about it? This is old history, old fake news, fake news, fake news. But Elon polls quite well with MAGA. He polls better than Mike Johnson. He polls better than Majority Leader Thune. It's the only base in the whole country that he still polls well with. He polls terrible with Democrats, pretty bad with independents. But with Republicans, he still got like a 62% approval rating. Trump has a 79% approval rating or something. So it's still significantly higher, but it makes people ask questions. And gosh, if you're an independent, how you feeling about this right now? Shouldn't we know if the president is a diddler? That's my question. Shouldn't we know if the president is a diddler? Whether it's Clinton, Trump, or anyone? Pretty bad. But it still doesn't end there. Because Trump, after having this brought out, messages this on Truth Social. He puts out a truth directly from President Trump. I still can't get over how Orwellian that sounds. A truth from the president. I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so months ago. This is one of the greatest bills ever presented to Congress. Okay. It's a record cut in expenses, $1.6 trillion, and the biggest tax cut ever given. If this, well, you see, that's how you get deficit spending. Whoa, biggest tax cut ever. Where'd the deficit come from? If this bill doesn't pass, there will be a 68% tax increase and things far worse than that. You could list them. What are the things that are far worse? I didn't create this mess. I'm just here to fix it. This puts our country on a path of greatness. Make America great again. Now, I want to show you something. Do you guys notice a tonal shift here? From what the type of messages Trump was putting out an hour before Elon made his post about Jeffrey Epstein, and 8 minutes after Elon made his post about Jeffrey Epstein, 8 to 10 minutes. before you hear Elon wearing thin, I asked him to leave. I took away his EV mandate and forced everyone to buy electric cars that nobody else wanted. Elon's never said that he wanted an EV mandate, by the way. And I'm not an Elon simp. I'm anything but an Elon simp. He never said that he knew for months I was going to do. He just went crazy. He's calling Elon crazy. The easiest way to save the money on the budget, billions and billions, is to terminate Elon's subsidies. Then after the post, I don't mind Elon turning against me, but he should have done so earlier. This is a good bill. Good bill, good bill, good bill, good bill. Seems to be a verbal shift to me. Seems to be a tonal shift to me. Seems to show the President of the United States, I don't want to know if I want to say watching his words more, but that's certainly what it feels like, that he's watching his words more. My goodness. But that's still, even after this, that wasn't it.
A curd is a curd.
WFC Champ has donated $5. What do you think about some people trying to bring Elon back to being a liberal?
I mean, it's not that I don't think that there could be any use for Elon not giving them millions upon millions of dollars, but Elon is the richest man on the planet. I don't think that you're going to get him to sign on to a lot of the policies of the opposition that is pretty fundamental for us to keep our coalition together. And I also would question exactly how liberal Elon even was in the first place when we say back to being a liberal. I mean, he believed in green energy, he believed in science and tech and innovation, he believed in student visa programs. These are the areas that we could supposedly find some allegiance on, and maybe you could, work with him on X, Y, or Z in a very isolated capacity. But in order to recruit the richest man back into your camp to get the type of money that he was pumping into Trump, which I don't even know if we should be pursuing, I'm against it really, you're going to have to give him something. And I don't really feel like giving him much of anything. Because the message that I think would work better for Democrats going into November is we're going to reel the ultra rich that are abusing our system and gutting our Constitution in. We're going to, defend the Republic, defend your Medicaid. We're going to defend your Social Security. We're going to defend these things that are under siege from the richest amongst us who don't have to worry about Medicaid, who don't have to worry about their Social Security because they have a golden toilet. I think that's a more compelling message. It's also why I don't think we should run J.B. Pritzker come 2028. Plus, it's kind of hard to have a bunch of top Democrats go from he did a Nazi salute to welcome back into the fold, buddy. It's kind of good luck with that. Good luck with that. Now, this didn't end there. Elon kept going. Elon kept going. President versus Elon. Who wins? My money's on Elon. Trump should be impeached, and J.D. Vance should replace him. Yes. Within 6 to 12 hours, Elon has gone from being one of Donald Trump's biggest supporters to saying that he's going to cause a recession, implying that he's a pedophile, and that he should be impeached and replaced with J.D. Vance. The folly of the ego, the momentum of the ego continues to build. Again, there's no winners here, though. Hey, guys, I knew the president of the United States could have been a pedophile, and he has his records in the Epstein files. I just hadn't said anything because I hadn't had a reason to turn against him yet. Same thing about that recession that's incoming. Oh, I didn't tell you guys about that? Oh, yeah, a recession's coming. Let's impeach him now because he didn't line with the big... What's wrong with you, man? This doesn't make you look good. This makes both of you look terrible. You have decided to drag Donald Trump into the mud pit, not realizing that you have tied yourself so much to him or implying an access to information that also damages you. Because if you found out that Donald Trump's name was in the Epstein files, that's something you never mention if you want to stay close to that type of power, or you immediately mention if you have a conscience and you think that that's too evil, right? You can't just wait 6 months and then kind of just drop it on somebody. Could you imagine if I was like, hey, you guys, Lonerbox, my buddy? Well, I found out that he has, we had that debate recently about, whether or not we should give Ukraine all of the United Kingdom's atomic arsenal. He said no. So, I'm going to inform you guys that he's part of ISIS. Oh, okay, that would be something you would expect. Like, yes, Loner Box looks worse now, but then I look like I was harboring. So it looks like Elon was harboring information about the most notorious sex criminal in the world and his direct relationship to the President of the United States. Also, here's something that I am thinking about. Elon had a lot of access to information when he was in the White House. A lot. A lot of access to information he didn't have clearance for. But that didn't stop him from going in there and accessing that information anyway. I wonder if he picked up anything during that Doge super rush through government institutions that is not only going to be beneficial to his business, but is also potentially leverage. Just something to worm around in your head if you can think about any of these institutions Elon Musk engaged with that could be useful for. But this is not something that's happening without any resistance. Steve Bannon is saying that Musk should be deported back to South Africa. So we've gotten to the point where immigration law and deportations are based upon your loyalty to the President of the United States. Do you like Trump? You can stay. Do you not like Trump? You're getting deported. So congratulations. Steve Bannon's strong American principles shine through again. But also, Elon Musk picture with Ghislaine Maxwell has been popping up like crazy in response to this as well, saying like, hey, buddy, you want to go down with the ship? Because we can have you go down with the ship. And I really don't know about Elon Musk's relationship with Maxwell or not, or if this is just a quick picture that was snapped at a party. But I don't know if there's nearly as much as there is of Donald Trump's comments on Jeffrey Epstein liking him on the younger side. There's just so much more. And so from my perspective, well, Donald Trump has the investigative state behind him, and if he tells Kash Patel to go snooping into Elon Musk's history to get leverage, or if he tells the, intelligence agencies or his staff to do that, I think there's a possibility he does that. He has tools in his tool belt that in this right-wing civil war can benefit him, but there's just so much more already public about Donald Trump's ties to Epstein and Maxwell that I really don't know, unless they're going to uncover something, what they would be able to throw at Musk. But I mean, that isn't going to stop them from trying. This is really bad for the Republicans. This is bad for the big, beautiful bill that they wanted to pass. This is bad for financing going into 2026 for primary candidates. I'm making the assumption that there's a really good chance that Elon's money is not going to be good in the 2026 primary. Not generally speaking, but I mean for Trump MAGA candidates. It could be good for people primarying them. It could be good for maybe an individual Democrat or two, like a Tom Suzy type, that might call up Elon and say, hey, I'm a non-woke Democrat. Or, hey, Mr. Elon, my name's John Fetterman, and I want to have a long talk about X, Y, and Z. Maybe. But that Elon-Trump alliance is dead, and I don't think it's coming back. It's dead, and I don't think it's coming back. So that's already one problem for the Trump administration. Another problem for the Trump administration is because he's the richest man in the world, and because there was already pre-existing concerns from fiscal hawks. That's not even to talk about people like Susan Collins, who doesn't want to see cuts to PEPFAR, etc. But the fiscal hawks, like Mike Lee and others, have jumped on the opportunity to say, we agree with Elon, not about what's going on with Jeffrey Epstein. In fact, they said all this yesterday. I wonder what they're saying today. I wonder if they're just going to keep their mouth shut and just wait for it all to pass over, or if they're going to continue to come out and say, yeah, no, we agree with Elon. I'm going to imagine the former, because I don't think they want to be associated with these types of attacks on the President of the United States, because this is what I would call a gut punch after gut punch after gut punch. But the biggest problem for Trump is not just the possible undermining of this bill. It's not just the loss of that capital. The most immediate, because those are bigger, longer term problems. The most immediate problem is this reputational hit of being brought back to this skeleton in this closet of exactly what was his relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, as we have not had access to the Jeffrey Epstein files. Pam Bondi says that there's no timeline for the release of the Jeffrey Epstein files after they promised that they would release them. And the files that are released are heavily redacted. after making that big show with the binders, it just makes it 10 times more comical. Not the situation, but like just how blatant they're dodging the thing. It probably didn't help parts of the conspiratorial base when Dan Bonagino and Kash Patel told news networks that Jeffrey really did kill himself, which may be the case, but how do you think that's going to play? Either way, this is the worst the Trump-Elon relationship has gotten. I don't see how it can get any worse. And we've gotten to the point where they are perfectly willing to drag each other into the mud in such a manner that damages them irreparably. Because if we get any new information out on Trump and some legitimate ties to Epstein, the most notorious sex criminal in the world, there's some injuries you never recover from, some wounds that never fully heal, and that would be one of them. And so I expect the president to do everything he can to keep his mouth shut on the issue and the Epstein files locked in the National Archives or in a casket in the woods or in tied to an anchor and dropped in a lake. They're going to do everything they can to distance Trump from those files, to distance Trump from Epstein, and to deny, while never offering the transparency to satisfy the public that the president really had no ties. And I don't even mean ties to Epstein. That's confirmed. I mean ties to his crimes. He's not sorry. Sometimes he just pauses to fuck with me. Well, now, Danabo, now you got another thing to edit out because you fucking decided to throw a comment around. You know what? You're free to come here and give your commentary, okay? Host a hippy dippy fucking on the Pokrovsk front, you little shit. You can do that. Let's see you keep your concentration.